Well, what we started doing once I threw my hat in the ring is we really took an auditor's approach to our investigation of the office. And through the FOIA processes, we've inquired about what we thought were basic, kind of fundamental processes and procedures to see how they were formatted, to see how they were lined up. Originally, it was to look at just how that would allocate out to staff and resources within the office. However, we found that through some of the FOIA responses that we were provided that maybe some of those processes and procedures weren't documented, and that's kind of a key function. Again, looking at it from an audit perspective, what happens and why it happens is often determined by those processes and procedures that are in place. One thing I mentioned in the release that wasn't in the article was that just like a business has to be compliant in tax filing to the government, the city clerk's office is responsible to municipal code as well as is held accountable to municipal code as well as state statute. And that's kind of the destination. The process and procedures is the roadmap of how you get there to make sure those statutes are met accordingly.
And process is not documented is a kind of a nebulous statement. Can you give us an example or two of, are you talking about what kind of a document or how would that manifest itself?
One, I mentioned I'll use a couple examples. One, in a disaster recovery program. Disaster recovery plan, and I'm confident there's one under an umbrella within City Hall, but specific to the clerk's office. Should a disaster occur, a tornado, even a break into the files for the clerk's office, whatever it might be, who has what responsibility within the office? How's the office to communicate should there be a disaster? Those types of things. Because those are things that I think the clerk is responsible for within the clerk's department to be able to make sure employees are aware of or employees are trained on. So should something like that happen, the records are kept secure, the information is maintained, and day-to-day operations are kept in place. The second would be what we looked at from a record retention policy, and that's kind of a big umbrella as well. And so I appreciate the opportunity to clarify on that a little bit. It's not just the statute itself that says how long documents need to be kept, but it's where are documents kept? What type of fire protection do they have? Who has access to the room? I'll give you a great example. In our SAS 70 audit within the payroll company, only certain people were allowed in certain rooms, so we had to go to key-coded doors so certain people wouldn't have access to where we actually converted payrolls from one company to ours. So names, social security numbers, W-2 information wouldn't be exposed to individuals that weren't required to see that on a day-to-day basis. And then a record retention plan or policy could go into the manner in which documents are stored, who's to get those, how are those handled from a chain of custody. So if they're taken out of storage, how do you track if they go to the clerk's office? Do they go over to business licensing? Who views those so you get those records back and they're returned to where they need to be? And then obviously a great deal of what's done in the clerk's office is put to microfilm. And then what's the process to move that to microfilm in an accurate manner? Because once it's put to film, it's history. So how do you ensure that those processes make sure that documentation is done in an accurate way?
In regard to the records retention policy, there are a number of rules in place that my office follows when it comes to records retention. The Administrative Code and the Local Records Act, the Downstate Local Records Commission are all documents that my office employs when we retain a document or when we dispose of a document. It is a document that we refer to every day when. Yes. If you look right across the hall there, the 5th floor of that building houses the majority of the records center for the city of Springfield. And my staff, a grand total of 5 of us, 3 of us work routinely in that records center to implement the rules that are already on the books and how we must, again, retain or dispose of documents. I think it bears noting that in an office with 5 people, there is 72 years worth of experience in municipal government, and the majority of that in the city clerk's office. And these are individuals who are well versed in their jobs, and they know which laws apply to how they get the task done every day. My focus as the city clerk has been service-oriented to the citizens of this community, and not particularly to writing administrative procedure to be, bound in a nice spiral book and placed on a shelf. And this is an office that routinely receives instruction from the city council every 2 weeks. And those duties can change with the changes in our municipal code. So it is an ongoing, constantly changing process in city government. And we do our absolute best. And I, in the past, have given kudos to my staff because they have rolled with the changes that I have implemented over the last 8 years. Not just because I thought it was a great idea, but because it was an idea that actually worked and helped our office function more efficiently. In regard to, again, back to the records of the office, there are 2 very large fireproof safes in my office that house old documents. When I inquired with the Illinois Historic Preservation Agency and the Presidential Library about how can we best preserve those documents, it was an absolutely incredibly expensive process to take old documents and preserve them. And my office certainly does not have that kind of money available to us. In the Sangamon Valley Historical Records section at Lincoln Library, of course, also houses many, many documents as it relates to the City Council and the City of Springfield. So I think that, again, my office has gone above and beyond in doing absolutely everything we can in meeting the requirements already on the books.